Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. David Corman, today we are in episode 139. Very exciting. We're talking about
Yep.
a very important topic today as well, one that really shook the industry a little bit. And I think it's a topic that realtors really need to consider. So I'm really glad that we're able to jump on and really discuss this.
Yeah, I'm really glad you raised this. We're going to talk about safety, in particular realtor safety. And it's something like I never even would have thought of it as something that we should be talking about. And then I started, reading your outline of some of the things you wanted to talk about today, and I go, yeah, like this is really important. And from what I'm doing, it's different. I see things differently. I never feel unsafe. And I started thinking about it. And then there were lots of times back, in our when we were all in the law office and everybody was there all the day, all time. There were certain issues that we had to deal with too, but with safety in the office. But realtors are out and about. It's not about, what's going on when you're in your own office. It's being in somebody else's house, meeting somebody you've never met before for the first time somewhere, and you pick a meeting place. And how do you know who you're meeting with? You've had a brief text with them or an email or something like it's an important thing. And I'm really glad you brought this topic up, David.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, David. And you it's one of those things that realtors never think about, or people in general never think about until that moment they're confronted with that moment, and then it all sort of comes together. So I think having it front of mind and taking precautions subconsciously every single time you go into a new situation, it's so important. And it all comes down to awareness, planning, and just keeping it in the back of your head that these things happen. They don't happen often, but when they happen, it can have dire consequences.
Yeah, and we just naturally think, "Oh, it's not going to happen to me." um, I trust people, the people that I get in touch with. I would do some sort of due diligence. I wouldn't think I'd be a target. But anybody could be. It doesn't matter if you're, 6'5" and 250 pounds. You could still be a target of somebody in the wrong circumstances. So, hopefully you don't have to be thinking about this at the front of your head all the time, but you should be thinking about it at some level and taking appropriate precautions to make sure that you're not a potential victim, and you don't put yourself in a situation, or you don't put a colleague in a situation that they could be compromised.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially when the market shifts or times get a little tougher, I just find that people are on edge a little bit more. So I think in these times, especially, you just have to be a little bit more vigilant. You have to ask a few more questions. You gotta, vet your clients a little bit more and just go the extra mile just to make sure that you can ensure your own safety. And David, there's so much technology out there right now that can assist and help with this as well. Like you can turn on the location services on your phone and have a buddy system so people know where you are, like sharing your schedule, telling the office where you're going. Little things like that can go a long way to helping you and just making sure that people know exactly where you are, what you're up to. And the other thing is who you're meeting with. If you're meeting a new client, then share the details of that new client with a buddy. Share the details of that new client with the office. If you sign a buyer representation agreement, don't just hold that paperwork in. Submit it to the office so the office knows exactly what you're working on, who you're working with, and what you're up to. And I think planning and keeping those things front of mind is so important.
Yeah, and where you decide to meet people is important too. And you should be suspicious if someone is insisting on meeting you in some random obscure place. Like, you're better off meeting at a busy coffee shop than, "Oh, I'll meet you in the parking lot over here," or, "I'll meet you in the park somewhere." Like, don't do that. Like, you're just putting yourself at risk. I think it's always a good idea to even, you talk about a buddy system, And I think that's great. If you can bring someone with you, that's great. If you can't, I'd suggest using a fake buddy system. Like suggest that oh, I'm probably coming with my friend David or my colleague Dave. We're probably going to come together. And then oh, David couldn't make it when you actually show up. Because let whoever it is think that there's somebody else coming. If you can't actually bring someone with you, like little things like that could make a difference. And if you get your spidey senses tingling for any reason, pay attention to it and really think about what you're doing. Because why should, like no one should be that desperate, to put themselves out and potentially at risk when there's little things you can do to protect yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree, David. And especially right now, if you're a listing agent, if you're thinking about getting a new listing or going out there to vet a new listing, um, don't be afraid of actually having that first client interaction at the office or in a public place. I think this is where realtors face the most challenges is, hey, you really want to get that listing. We had a new realtor a couple of years ago, and without informing anybody, she actually went to inspect an industrial complex all by herself without telling anybody. And she shared the story after the fact. We were talking about realtor safety at the office on one of our morning meetings, and she put up her hand and she said, "Oh my God, I was in this situation. And now that you mention it, and I'm going back and I'm replaying all the things that I did. And thank God that that situation turned out well, but it could have been a really ugly situation for me. I went to inspect an industrial complex for a brand new client that I didn't know, and it was in the
Wow.
middle of nowhere. We were all by ourselves, and I didn't tell anybody, right? So if you look at that situation, it's a brand new client, new realtor, so really eager and motivated for the business, met at an industrial complex in the middle of nowhere, all by themselves, without telling anybody, right? So that's the perfect situation that really illustrates of how cautious you have to be. Think about if she met the client at her office, did a proper listing presentation, uh, you know, identified the client, took his his driver license information, actually created a file for him, told the front desk where she's going, and gave the front desk, an itinerary with a map and the time table of when she's going to be going with this client, left his contact information, including his driver license at the front, and then left from the office to go and inspect the property, and then reported back to the office saying, "Hey, I just finished my meeting. Everything went well. Thank you so much for checking in with me." Like two completely contrasting situations to the same scenario. So I think, we really have to think through some of these situations. And I know as professionals, as sales professionals, we're eager to go in there and to get the business, but you have to really look at the bigger picture, and you have to take these precautions to heart.
So let me ask you this, David. These days, let's say you're acting for a buyer and you've lined up 3 or 4 properties that you want to show them. Once upon a time, the protocol would be, I'll pick you up and everybody, and that's why, you wanted to make sure you had a nice clean car because you're running around with buyers showing them properties. Has that changed? Is it more, here's where we're going to go. I'll meet you at the first place. Here's the address. You go there, meet me there. You take your own car, or are you picking up clients these days and or are you having a client pick you up to drive you around?
Every realtor runs their business a little bit differently, and everybody has a different preference of how to do their business. That certainly was the old approach. I find with COVID that really switched now, and a lot of realtors are meeting clients just at the properties.
And so you go to the first one and you take a look, and then okay, here's the next one. Let's drive over there. Everybody's in their own car. It's
Everybody's in.
certainly a safer way of doing it.
I think so, but I think safety starts way before that first initial appointment. It starts with, asking the right questions, vetting the client. Where did the client come from? What was the referral source? Uh, making sure that they're pre-qualified. So, getting all their information and working with the mortgage broker, that's going to teach you a lot about the client. What's their financial situation? If they're strong financially, there's probably going to be a lot less desperation for anything to happen along the way. So, I think safety starts, at the onset of the relationship.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Because you're reducing your odds considerably by even putting yourself in a potentially compromising situation if you vetted the person and you do all that planning ahead, and then you don't have to worry so much when you're actually in person with them. You've already got a comfort level, and you should be good. Um, you never want to be in a situation where you've okay, how much does that person, how much am I in good enough shape to physically fend this person off if I had to? Like, can you imagine having that thought process, with someone if you really start to feel uncomfortable in a situation?
Mm. We have a lot of female agents, and one thing I discuss with the female agents is um, how you do your showing tours of properties. And one thing I used to always practice when I was a realtor is I would never walk into any room first. So what I would do is I would open the door, swing it open, and then stand to the side and let the client enter first, right? Because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you enter a room and then they can close the door behind you and you're stuck in that room with no exit strategy. So same goes for a basement. Like I watched a new realtor show a house. I went on a tour, and she opened up the basement door and walked through first. And at the end of the showing, I pulled her aside and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Why would you enter a room first? Why would you enter a basement first? What if that client shuts the door? What if they come down the stairs and block the entrance and say, hey, now you're coming downstairs with me, right? Always let the client walk in first, open the door, and it's chivalrous too. As a realtor, you've now opened the door and let your client walk in first. I think it's a chivalrous moment. I think it shows great customer service and it puts your safety first. Every single time you open a bedroom door, you open the bedroom door. Go ahead, Mr. or Mrs. Client, look at how beautiful this room is. And then you walk in after them. And then you also have to be mindful where you are in relation to the door, right? So you always kind of follow your clients around, right? And you keep you very mindful of where the door is. And I think if you can get into this habit of doing this, it just becomes a routine and it will save your life. It will keep you safe. Um, we encourage that very much, and it's something that realtors really have to be mindful of.
No, that's great advice. And back to the buddy system or the fake buddy system that I was talking about before. If that might be an appropriate time to call your colleague and FaceTime with, oh, I want to show this part of the house to my colleague David. So let's get him on FaceTime as we're going through here. So you've got someone else on the phone seeing what's going on, whether they care to watch it or not, but it's just a safety thing, just so that it's not just the two of you there. There is another person. There is, and why not use the technology that's available, you know?
100.
Um,
Another great thing would be, hey, let me call Sabiha Ali, let me call David Gorski, let me call my management because I want a second opinion on what the
right,
right price is for this property. So I'm gonna
right,
have it on Facebook, and you know what? Now you're gonna have two heads instead of just my opinion. We're gonna
right,
bring in leadership and make sure that, hey, I haven't missed anything, and I can give you the best absolute service,
right.
right?
Now you're not alone.
You're not alone, and Sabia and I would be happy to be part of that journey with you, and to give you an extra set of eyes.
So are these the type of things you talk about in the brokerage? Like, do you have special sessions to talk just about safety and protocols and just just have a chit chat about this stuff?
It's important, David, and we're here to support the realtors, and I think safety is an absolute concern of ours. So we try to talk about these things as often as we can. We have a one-a-week meeting with the office. We call it Coffee with Sabia and David, and we discuss a lot of these aspects. And realtor safety is a huge concern. There was a great article actually put out by Virginia Munden, and I give her a lot of credit because, you know, a lot of people resist signing into open houses. And it's one of those things, you know, it's not about lead generation. It's so much more than that. It's a lot of it is to do with safety, safety for the realtor, safety for the homeowner, safety for the industry, and I think we all have to kind of work together to make sure that we keep the gold standard when it comes to this. So I give Virginia Munden a lot of credit for coming up with that article, and I think our industry as a whole has to be more mindful of realtor safety in general. And like you said, David, trust your gut. Like if your gut is telling you that something is off, trust it. And I know that, you know, that commission check, you know, especially now times are a little tougher, but really trust your gut. And if your gut is telling you that something's off, your spidey senses are going off, then, you know, get me involved, get Sabia involved, get a buddy involved, and really go the extra mile to protect yourself every step of the way.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't think you and your office or me and my office have experienced a situation that's really gone bad with, with someone. And part of it is because you do have discussions like this, and you put this in people's heads and have them thinking about it. And it's important, like in our business, we're not running around to other people's homes for the most part. But I can tell you, the times where I've gone to someone's house, it's usually because someone is ill, elderly, handicapped, something like that. I'm never comfortable doing it, never want to do it, but I'm usually doing in those situations. Usually there'll be a bunch of people there because it's not just the client, it's caregivers, it's some other family members. So I never really feel that compromise. But I'd rather they come to my office. I'd rather they, many times they've come and just driven up to the front, and I've gone into their car to sign them up, or stood at the window if they can't get in. But you do think about these things. In our office, our biggest concern, because in the days when we had everybody in the office, like, who's leaving last? Is there a clerk that's leaving? We always had to have a plan at night. How late are you staying? Who's the last one out? Because I never liked, well, we got one clerk, I'm staying till 8 o'clock tonight. I want to catch up on stuff. Well, then you're walking out to a parking lot all by yourself. That's not, well lit. It's not a comfortable thing. So it's no, like, how about so and so is leaving at 7:30? Can you plan to leave together? Like, just little things like that make a difference, and everybody should be aware of it. But in your industry, you're constantly going to meet somebody for the very first time in some obscure place or house or something, and you got to be mindful of it. Why take a risk?
Yeah, and you know, I think the female realtors in our industry have it exceptionally hard as well. I mean, you know, certain males experience the same thing, but you know, I think there's some unwanted attention, and you know, that makes it really difficult, right? Because you have to be razor sharp at distinguishing between who wants you for the right reasons and who wants you for the wrong reasons. And you know, I'd love to do a separate episode, maybe with a female realtor, where we can really discuss some of those things, and how you can approach and how you can vet and what you can do to really protect yourselves to make sure that you don't get yourself into some of these potentially bad situations.
Yeah. Well, great topic, great discussion, and I hope people pay attention. It's a bunch of little things that they can do to protect themselves. And once, as long as you have a thought process of this stuff, it'll become ingrained. It's not like it's, like a complicated, a lot of it's just, common sense type of things that you could do, but you have to be aware of it. So I hope this will bring it to people's attention if they hadn't been paying attention to it. And I hope other brokerages are offering the same type of advice that you guys are at Sutton Summit to protect your people.
Thanks, David. Remember, no deal is worth sacrificing your safety. These are important tips. Stay smart and protect yourself out there. Thanks for tuning in, and catch us next time on our next episode of the David and David on Real Estate podcast. Thanks, everybody.